So we got a early to mid 60s Arvin AM FM stereo tabletop radio. So FM and FM stereo. I'm assuming this is the stereo indicator light, so right next to the stereophonic label there. This is a tube radio. They only made these FM stereo tube radios for a few years in the early 60s. I don't think they were that reliable. I don't think they made a lot of tabletops either. I think most of them were consoles. This just has the speakers in either end, where the speakers are. Take a little look inside here. Just standard circuit board. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tubes it looks like. So 2 speakers there. So I guess we'll hook this up and see what it does. So the cord's plugged in. Alright, we'll try out AM first, I guess. Well, it sounds like we only need to replace a few capacitors. Volume seems to have no effect. Alright, so capacitors first, I guess, since we're not going to get anything except for this hum. Alright, so it looks like we've got a 80, 30, and 40 in here, and this is like a 20 down here. And that seems to be about it for the potentially bad capacitors. Everything else, like this little guy, I think is a plastic film, and there's another big one back there that's plastic film, and then everything else looks like disc. So these should be the only capacitors that would need to be changed in here. Hopefully. Sometimes the capacitors in these IF cans can go bad. I don't think Arvin was necessarily a higher end brand, but even if it was, that wouldn't really matter because even in Zenith sometimes these go bad. So hopefully that's not the issue. Because those are not fun to figure out. I didn't even know the model number of this. The label's missing off the bottom, so hopefully we won't have to worry about that. I'm just going to replace these and see what that does for us. But even if you find the model number on something like this, you can see that, yeah. Even if you find the model number on something like this, usually they don't tell you the values of the capacitors inside these cans because the radio manufacturer doesn't actually build these cans. Usually they just buy them from, as a whole assembly from another company. So the manufacturer might not even know, the radio manufacturer might not even know the value of the capacitor in here. They just say they want a can for whatever frequency they're using, either usually 455 for the AM and 10.7 for the FM. And then the manufacturer that makes these cans will just make that up however they want, appropriate coil and capacitor pair, and then send it off to the radio manufacturer. The radio manufacturer doesn't have to worry about what's in here. So usually on the schematic they don't even specify the value of those. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's do these capacitors first and see what that does for us. Alright, the capacitors are replaced. Just this guy and this guy. And this was 3, so I put those 3 right there where that was. And then this one was hanging off the side here. So it had 2 wires, one ran over here and one ran over back there. I removed that wire and then stuck that capacitor back here and then just ran the wire over to the positive side. So I got 2 screws in the bottom to hold it in for temporarily. You can't take the whole chassis out without desoldering the speaker wires, and I don't feel like doing that, so I just loosened it up enough to lift it back to get some space and put 2 screws back in to hold it in for testing. I'll put the back on. I do have a cheater cord somewhere, but I don't feel like digging it out right now. This will be fine for testing. All right. Some knobs in the back here. I can stick a few of these on temporarily. This is the volume one. Notice how all the paint is missing off of it from use. They're just plastic knobs and then they paint them. This one with no line on it must be the tuning one. And we'll just stick one on function and see what we get now. Same thing. That's interesting. She knows it's only coming out of one speaker though. There's something there. You have to check that out though. There's still a noticeable hum. Let's see if I can kill some of this interference. Still a noticeable hum when the volume's all the way down though. That's interesting.
League North for Lehigh Valley, the International League West for Toledo, and the rest of the International League in general.
Also, only one speaker is working.
West Coast road trip, and then we'll take you around. It's Sunday, so we got to recap you on the week that was. First.
It's a bit stiff at the end too. Sharp FM stereo. So we're getting FM, but this should be a stereo station. Not a whole lot there, and the volume will have to be cleaned. So that hum is independent of both the volume and the balance. See if the tone has any effect on it. I wonder if the it's stiff. I wonder if the diode is going bad or something. Is it coming out of the other speaker too? Yes, it is. Alright, so we do have some reception. That was pretty weak, and no stereo. This is pretty stiff. Alright, so let's do a little investigation on this. So potentially the issue for weak FM is this was disconnected. If we look at the back here, so basically, that tells it to use the internal antenna, connects to the internal antenna. If you disconnect that, then you would connect an external antenna. I had no antenna connected, so basically this thing was trying to pick up FM with absolutely no antenna. So it's not surprising that it was that weak. Well, reconnect this, and this is probably just off the line cord. That's why the zeniths of this time were, they just capacitively coupled the line cord in as the FM antenna. So we'll see if that makes a difference, but that would not cause the hum, so we're going to check. This is our rectifier diode right there, so we'll check that. Is it readable? Not really. So that's a bit better. Just gonna kind of read that. So one way we have 0.4, that looks okay. And the other way, that's not right. So this is reverse polarity. Oh, it's all over the place. Maybe these capacitors are still charged. I'll take at least lift one leg out of circuit and test it again, but looking at it, that might be the problem. Alright, so you can see I did have to took this out of the cabinet to get a better look at some things. I did end up changing the diode. You can't really see it back there, but I did change the diode. The way that this works is the power comes in through, I think it's this pin, and then goes over to a little capacitor here, which is probably what they're using for the RF capacitor on the line coming in. And then it goes through this resistor and then over to the diode down here. Now I checked the voltage on this. The B plus coming off the diode was 108 volts. That's probably a little low, which is why I went ahead and changed it. Kind of interesting, a lot of the radios have the diode right off the AC input coming in and then have resistor droppers. This has the resistor before the diode. It shouldn't make a difference either way, it's just an interesting difference between most radios. Here we have our dual single-ended output tubes, and this is another interesting thing here. One of these is a 50C5 and the other one is a 50HK6. So one channel is being driven with the 50C5 and the other one is driven by this one, the 50HK6. I'm not quite sure why that is. Usually you would have the same, you'd want to keep each channel as similar as possible so that you get the same output on either channel, so that you don't have like one channel that's much louder than the other or anything like that. But they use completely different tubes for each channel. I'm not sure how well you could match those. I mean, I guess it's not a big deal because you have a balance control in the front, but it's kind of interesting. A lot of weird tubes in here. These two guys here are 20 EZ7s. By looking at them, they look like they look just like a 12AX7, and maybe they're pretty similar just with the 20-volt filament. Not quite sure about that. It looks like for the IF they used 18GD4, 18GD6 actually. 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 Another interesting choice. I haven't really seen those before. Anyway, I think I'm going to spot check a few of these resistors here before we put it back in the cabinet just to see how out of tolerance they are. So here's one that's supposed to be a 470K, 490, yeah, that's probably okay. Here's one, looks like 8.82 ohms, 89, yeah, that's probably okay. This I think the silver band is 10%, so that would be within 10%, barely, but still in tolerance. Hasn't drifted that far. If it's drifted at all, it could have come that way from the factory for all I know. Here's one, that's what, 1K. So if you can see that one. See what that gives us. It must be in parallel with something. It's measuring 500. So that must be in parallel with something. Let's see, what else can we check here? One looks like 56K. 57, yeah, that's probably okay. These are not that bad, so I don't think I'm gonna go through and check all of them. I can see what that one is. I'm gonna say 2.2K, looks like. It's kind of burnt or dirty or something. 1.7K, that's probably alright, it's probably in parallel with something. Alright, so I think I'm gonna put this back in the cabinet and see what we get now. Let's see what we get now. So our hum is gone. Is that light lighting up? Light is not lighting up. Are the tubes lighting up? Tubes are lighting up. Oh, the light is lighting up, it's just very dim. Pretty weak. We're on AM now. I think I know what the problem is. I forgot to reconnect the speakers. Alright, speakers are reconnected. Let's try again. Yeah, you still have a little bit of a hum. I don't know what's causing that. Okay. It seems to have changed now.
Sizzling on a flame grill? Right now, you can get 2 Whopper sandwiches for just $6. The answer is A and B. Both are better.
Oh, we have both speakers now, at least.
Super $6 Whopper deal. Always flame grilled and made with 100% beef. Always prepared to order with freshly chopped onions and tomatoes. The 2 for $6 Whopper deal. Only at Burger King. For a limited time, participation varies. Prices higher in Alaska.
So we still have that hum. I guess I'll have to get the scope out and check and see if I can find where that's coming from. Whether it's coming from whether it's on the B plus line or whether it's just coming from the audio circuit. Not too bad on AM. Try FM and stereo. The stereo light is not lighting up though.
Get paid to get the girl paid.
Well, balance seems to have lost its effectiveness. Seem to have more effect on AM. It's interesting. I did clean these controls. Better get off the music. So the light's not lighting up, but I can't tell by ear if it's stereo or not. So modern music has very little stereo separation. So let's go back to AM and see. Yeah, nothing happening there again.
To the first baseman Vanessa said the first inning, and
We pull it out as AFC off,
former first round
which
pick of the
shouldn't
Rays
really
in
have an effect on
2011.
AM, but on FM, find it. So yeah, it turns AFC off. So AFC works. But that before. So it's doing something. It seems more like it's performing a tone function than a balance function. That's tone. So let me look into that for a minute. Yes, the AFC has no effect on AM. So let me see if I can figure out what exactly this controller is connected to and how it's supposed to function in the circuit. Okay, so I examined the circuitry around the volume control, and all I could find, or not the volume control, the balance control, and all I could find was a cracked solder joint. So I resoldered that. We'll see if that makes a difference. I took a closer look at this capacitor, which I pulled out, and I thought this said 20 microfarads, but if you look, it almost looks like it says 120 microfarads. So I put a 100, I had a 20 in there, or a 22 rather, I put a 22 in there in place of this, and then once I discovered this, I took that 22 back out and put a 100 in. I don't have a 120, but I put a 100 in, and we'll see if that does anything with regards to the hum. Also, when I had it apart looking at the balance control, I found this capacitor up in the front corner up here. So I figured, I wonder if this is related to the FM stereo decoding. It was kind of up in that area. So, looks like it might be. So we'll see if this has any effect, just a little 4 microfarad at 50 volts. We'll see if this has any effect on our stereo decoding happening. So let's go to AM first. So still a little bit of hum, but definitely much better than it was before. You'll see that pretty much goes away as it warms up. So that seems to be okay.
He didn't walk a man, struck out one, and faced 28 batters here today. Now Tacoma, a big righty, and his first offering
Let's see what
here
this
was taken
does.
by Chambers out of his own ball one. 2, 3, 4. You up for the Pigs? Pitch, strike.
Okay then.
Chambers has had a very
So it looks like it cuts out one side but not the other side.
double, a triple, and a run scored. Now the pitch, off speed strike, right on the outside corner. And the countdown in favor of the righty Comer. Count 1 and 2 on the left-handed swinging Adron Chambers.
It does something.
That's
This
from the third base side pitch.
very strange.
Comer 1-0, a 3.60 ERA. Leads the club now 20 appearances this season. 3 for 3 in save opportunities, though this is not one. Pitch.
Pagado por la Asociación de Educación de New Jersey.
Hay que llamar para poder opinar.
Not sure if you can tell, but it does look like that light is on now.
Para la voz del fanático.
It's very dim. There's just an incandescent light bulb back here that shines into a light pipe. So I just bent the bulb in so it was facing more directly into the light pipe. So it seems to help a little bit, but it's still not that bright. Yeah, it picks up the music station. Sounds like a different music station.
First century.
Oh, not bad on AM. Let's try FM stereo. Can't really see it, but stereo light is lighting up now. See if I tune off, it'll go out. So it seems like stereo is working. All I did for that was change this little capacitor, so that seems to have brought stereo back. It makes that crunchy sound as the stereo comes in. Or leaves. Interesting. Can't have music, I'll get a copyright strike.
The Valley's #1 hit music station.
So we have stereo there as well. See what happens if I turn the AFC off. Yeah, did the stereo go out? Stereo is flashing. AFC is a very, very nice feature, especially on these old tube FM radios. Without the AFC, you have to get exactly right on the station and then hope that nothing drifts as the receiver warms up. Because if anything like a resistor or a tube or anything starts drifting as it gets hot, then you're going to have to keep retuning the radio constantly until it gets up to temperature. So definitely a nice invention for AFC. I think Zenith came out with that in, well, I'm not sure if Zenith was the first one that had it, but Zenith is generally regarded as the higher end radios, and their first ones that had it, I think, were the early 50s. This is definitely just a cheap mid to late 60s radio. The plastic cabinet with the fake wood grain on here. This plate is metal though. So this is definitely a very cheap receiver. Like I said, I think most of the 1960s tubes FM stereo radios were consoles. I mean, if you sit this on a shelf and then walk across the room, it won't really matter that it's stereo. You're not going to hear the stereo separation because the speakers are so close together. Other things like, let me show my coffee table radio. That's an FM stereo, but it has the speakers in either end. So that has much wider stereo separation than a little tabletop like this. And see, then this has no detection for weak signal. So on a lot of later FM stereo radios, if you had a weak subcarrier like this, it would turn off the FM stereo so you could listen to it. This one doesn't, so you have to manually turn off the stereo so that you can actually listen to the music without having all that static from erroneous subdecoding. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little look at probably mid-60s Arvin AM FM stereo tube radio. Thank you for watching. Alright, so because the capacitor that I took out of there was a 120, and the one that I put in was only 100, I did go back in and parallel a 22 in parallel with the 100, so let's see if that took care of any of the hum. Not really. Not entirely surprised by that. I believe that hum filtering like that, as you increase the capacitance, it's kind of like diminishing returns. So if you double the size of your capacitor, you're not going to half the hum. You'd have to go a much larger capacitor than that to reduce the hum by half, especially as you increase the capacitor size. Like if you wanted to eliminate the hum entirely, you have to basically have an infinite value capacitor. But regardless, this is a cheap radio. I wouldn't be surprised if it had a little bit of hum like that right from the factory. Like I mentioned, the plastic cabinet, just the fake wood grain on the top. I don't know if you've seen that. Just the fake wood grain on the top. Series string, of course. This is metal though, but this is plastic. The FM stereo indicator is just a little neon in there. The grill cloth on the side is, looks like it was just glued on and it's falling off. Maybe some glue on there unless somebody else tried to glue it back on. On higher quality radios, they would actually have like a metal sheet behind this with holes in it for the sound to get out, and then actually wrap the edge of the cloth around the metal sheet and then either glue or screw the metal sheet in, so that way you wouldn't have this delamination like this here, because it would be wrapped around the edge of the metal sheet. Now it would be possible for the whole metal sheet to come off, but that would be much easier to put back in because the cloth is already stretched around it, whereas here it's, you could try and glue it back in, but not sure if you get it the proper toughness. And that seems pretty stiff, almost like someone did try to glue it back in and wasn't very successful. But the other side is the same way. See, it's just coming out at the top. Anyway, not a bad radio though, just for listening. I mean, it sounds okay. Go to AM and turn off the interference. I have a couple of interference that are causing things. Delete that one. Go to some interference and
What you need is something that'll keep it clean. Wet and forget. That's the product. It keeps surfaces clean.
Because you were getting one. There was going to, I mean, you assumed every series, Barry's going to hit at least one.
And of course, this has a directional antenna for AM, so if you turn the radio this way, you'd probably get completely different stations. That's my regular music station. That's a bit off. That's supposed to be at 1100 and it's almost right up on 12.
Here it is, man. What he's saying.
Nada ayer. Desde mayo 10.
Not bad though. Picks up a decent number of stations. So you hear that? So that's what happens. That's why there's a FM and an FM stereo switch. This doesn't have any sort of circuitry to detect a weak stereo subcarrier and cut off the stereo. So on a weak station, it's still trying to decode stereo even though the carrier is too weak. So that's where you get all that garbled voice there. The FM stereo is broadcast in two signals. You have the main signal, which contains the left channel plus the right channel, and then you have the subcarrier, which contains the left channel minus the right channel. And then in the radio, it decodes the subcarrier to, or it decodes both of them actually, to produce both left plus right and left minus right internally. And then to get the left channel, it would do left plus right plus left minus right, and then that would cancel out the right and you get just the left. And then for the right, it would do left minus right minus, left plus right, no, wait a minute. To get the right channel, it would do left minus right minus left plus right, and then you get, that would cancel out the left and you get just the right. Might have to do a phase inversion there, but still, that would get you pure right signal. So the subcarrier is necessary to get both the left and the right channels for stereo. So when the subcarrier is weak like this, it garbles both the left and the right channel because it can't decode either without the subcarrier. So if you turn this off to FM, now it's not trying to use the subcarrier anymore. So you get your normal left plus right out of both the left and the right channels. See, our stereo light is working now. Kind of flickering though. I can't have music. That's interesting though, is when it cuts out of stereo, you get that popping. You turn off AFC. That must be right on it. Turn a little bit, and then turn off AFC. So with AFC off, so you have to be right on it. With AFC on, I get a much wider range. The reason why you'd want to turn AFC off is if you were trying to receive a very weak station next to a very strong station, the AFC would lock on the strong station and you couldn't pick up the weak station. So if you turn this off, then you could tune to the weak station, and if you get right on it, you can pick it up. Balance is still weird. Get off the music. That was an effect, but I'm not sure what exactly it's trying to do. actually have tone. But not really balanced. Oh well. And like I said, cheap radio. I'm gonna actually use this as my daily driver because if it works for, you know, a couple years and then erupts into a ball of flame, I don't really care. So maybe new daily driver. It's got stereo. Stereo works well. It's really hot. Don't put anything on top of it when you're using it. You'll melt it. But there you go. There's a little look at and repair of a mid-60s Arvin AM FM stereo. Make sure that when you replace a part in a radio, it helps to use the right part and not be off by a factor of 10 because you can't read the label. But other than that, oh, and also this diode was probably okay. If I put the right capacitor in the first time, it probably would have worked fine and I wouldn't have even suspected this diode. But diodes are cheap, so not a big deal. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.